Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel. On our channel, we talk about everything that has to do with developing femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I'm Cherry Lynn, and I'm here with my mom, Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi.
Hey.
So today we are talking about a subject that we're calling Are Stay-at-Home Moms Sad? This came from an article that Mom found on the internet that we will attach to this video. And when we read it, we couldn't help but feel the need to kind of challenge it a little bit, because the article basically states that, based off of one poll, that women that stay at home with their kids are sad, and they're more sad than women that work, which we just find to be kind of, really? Usually when we get articles like this, we don't want to cover them in a video because these types of articles tend to come from news sources that aren't very credible. And this one is kind of included. It comes from theboardpanda.com, not a credible news source. However, the poll came from a credible source, and that was Gallup.
And I have to add that I have found in the last few years that polls, they sometimes get answers that they want based on how they ask the question. And so if something feels a little bit off, you have to look at that. Like, what is it that they're trying to say? Because in my personal life, in my world, I don't find this to be true, that it doesn't fit with everything we know about mothers. Now we're talking about mothers, not just women.
Right. And when you get, this is the thing about not believing everything you read on the internet. I think a lot of people read this and they go, oh, I should definitely see, I read that article, and staying at home is not good for you. You're going to be sad. You're going to be depressed. When you dig into this article, which we did, and we dig into the poll, it's full of holes. The article is called, His Husband Nags His Wife and Mom of Three for Not Taking Care of Her Looks Until She Blows Up During Family Dinner and Puts Him in His Place. That's what the headline, the giant headline, is called. When you start looking at this article about this man that's kind of attacking his wife, the first thing you see is a recent Gallup poll found that among women, non-employed moms of young children are more likely to report anger and sadness, and they are also more likely to have been diagnosed with depression than their employed counterparts. So if you stop right there, you click on the recent Gallup poll, and the recent Gallup poll is called Stay-at-Home Moms Report More Depression, Sadness, and Anger. Headline, but low-income stay-at-home moms struggle the most. They don't mention anything about low income in the original Board Panda article. So that's something that's rather important.
Well, and they also don't mention anything about the marriage relationship. It's like their anger and sadness is only to do with money, basically.
It doesn't say anything about the women being single or married.
No.
Kind of a big detail. It's not in there at all. We don't even know.
Pretty important.
We don't know how many kids they have. We have no idea if it's a woman low income with 5 kids or a woman low income with 1 kid. We don't know. When I read this could include women that work part-time or full-time, when I read that, to me in my head, I'm thinking that means the woman could work 5 hours a week or 50 hours a week. We don't know.
But does it include women who work from home?
It just says part-time or not. Technically, you and I are part-time employees because we work for Fascinating Womanhood and we do these YouTube videos. So it's really doesn't make any sense to me that you would clump everybody together. It should be redone with full-time outside the home workers with children versus women that are completely no job, which I don't even know how they would do that, because some women have hobbies that they make money off of. Some women are artists and sell their art. There's so many different ways. It's impossible to know this accurately. And I think it's startling that a news source would report it as if it's a fact when we haven't even gotten into the story yet and it's already not correct. I'll just jump into a little bit about the poll before we keep going with the story with the man picking on his wife. This analysis examines adult women between the ages of 18 and 64 before retirement age. Stay-at-home moms are defined as women who are not currently employed and have a child younger than 18 at home. So it could even be somebody part-time employee with a teenager at home. It could be a part-time worker with 5 babies at home. It could be, that's just so many different groups of people. Gallup looked separately at non-employment moms who are looking for work and those who are not looking, to distinguish between those who may not be employed because of circumstance rather by choice. So that means that women who have a choice to work versus women who do not want to work they're not included in some of these charts. It's not labeled. in the poll, even though they say that they separated the women, like the women that were maybe fired or laid off, but there's no clear defining label in this poll that says, okay, these are the women that didn't want to stay home. Therefore, these are the percentages we saw. That's just not an accurate poll.
No, I strongly suspect these questions are geared towards getting the answers that they already want.
Gallup looks separately at non-employed moms who are looking for work and those who are not looking, to distinguish between those who may not be employed because of circumstance rather by choice, and both groups are more likely to report anger. Both groups.
Okay, where does this anger come from?
It doesn't say. It doesn't say.
Yeah.
So anger, by the way, could come from financial problems. You just don't know. The point of this isn't to get so, caught up between all the tiny little details. The point is that they're trying to make this huge message here that women that stay at home are going to be sad. You're going to be doomed if you stay at home, but it's just not the case. And sometimes you have to get really detailed to explain why it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want to believe this. So then you go a little bit further into this poll, and we'll show these charts here for you. Stay-at-home moms fare worse than employed moms at every income level in terms of sadness, anger, and depression. But then you look at this chart here that says thriving, struggling, suffering, smiled or laughed a lot, all these percentages, and they break it into stay-at-home moms, employed moms, and then employed women with no children at home. I don't know how that got in there.
Well, they could be like me and their kids are grown. So they're mothers, but their kids aren't.
But that should not be included that should be a separate poll for older women that are empty nesters. That should be a separate poll. They shouldn't be compared to women who have a brand new baby at home. It's just completely different.
No, it's not.
And it also on this chart, if you'll notice, and I'm going to attach it on the screen, it does not say anything about income levels on this chart. And this is a Gallup poll. Gallup is a big company, a very respected company. They are known for how detailed they are, but this one is not detailed. And then it goes on to show yet another chart that talks about the low income. And then there's actually a low income chart just for the low income women. And that includes stay-at-home moms, employed moms, and then employed women with no children at all. And it says slightly more that the stay-at-home moms smiled or laughed, slightly less that the stay-at-home moms smiled or laughed a lot, barely less. It's very, very small. We don't know what does that even mean?
Laughs off. It doesn't take into account these people are implying it's whether you're employed. It's not the quality of relationships.
Well, they're implying that if you're employed, that your relationships will just be better and you'll just be happier and you'll be more fulfilled. And to me, there's a hidden agenda there, and I don't like it.
That is not true.
There's nothing wrong with women that work. There's nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to do, but don't try to insinuate that women that don't choose not to work are sad and they're hiding it. That's how it kind of feels. It kind of feels like
they're angry
or depressed, and they're just hiding it and they don't want to tell anybody. And this article is kind of like, guess what? We found out that all of you guys are sad. And it just feels we're just laughing at it because it's just ridiculous.
Well, and it also doesn't take into account studies that have shown that I don't know what the percentage is of women who've been highly successful in their careers, for instance, like law, and by the time they get into their middle 30s, they suddenly quit and stay home because they realize their biological clock is ticking and they want children. And they think, is this all there is? So,
and when we get to the end of this, we're also going to share another article that completely contradicts this one, that says that not only is it great for women to stay home with their children, but it also points to children being more successful academically when they have one parent that stays at home with them. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah. Which this one does not talk about, by the way. It doesn't even go anywhere near the quality of your children's life. Low-income stay-at-home moms are also more likely to say they've experienced daily worry and stress than low-income employed moms. Now, this chart is just a worry and stress chart. And it's separated into stay-at-home moms, employed women with no children at home, and it's an income of less than $36,000 US. I don't know. So many different things. You could be stressed out about your children. You could be stressed out about financial things. It doesn't necessarily mean that whether you're working or not.
Well, you could be stressed out about your marriage. You could have no spouse at all. You could be stressed out because you broke up. You could be stressed out because of health problems.
So some of our takeaways from this poll are part-time and full-time workers are combined. Why? This is not accurate polling. Women who have never had children are included in the poll. That should not be included because that's a completely different life stage if you have children that aren't home. Low-income moms struggle the most. This tells us the survey should have primarily focused on low-income moms because they did not label any of the charts as high income or middle income. It makes us wonder what Gallup considers to be thriving, suffering, or struggling. Why are those three separate categories? Don't those three things kind of cross over? These three categories often relate to financial matters as well. So something to think about.
I would love to see a list of the questions that they asked. I feel quite confident that they were asked in order to get the answers that fit with their pre-drawn conclusion in the beginning.
Right. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the Gallup poll. So going back to the story, we were talking about the woman who takes care of her 3 kids. Now they're 5 years, 3 years, and 6 months. So she has really small, younger children. And she described in the article as her husband as the breadwinner. But she put this post on Reddit, and this is where the article came from, is that she posted on there this kind of sad story about this evening when her husband picked on her, and it became kind of a big topic on Reddit, and then someone picked it up for this article. In a brutally honest post on Reddit, the woman shared how lately her husband has been complaining about her, and it says, quote, complaining about me not taking care of myself / looks and being always busy with chores and whatnot. The tension escalated even further as the two were attending a family dinner. Not only did the guy start openly criticizing her current look in front of everyone, he also called her unladylike. And this is when the author blew up. And by the way, it does not say whether or not she stays at home by choice. Just doesn't need, I don't know why. Kind of an important detail.
The article it's interesting. It says she's brutally honest, but she doesn't say why he's calling her unladylike. Is kind of interesting and a little bit of an unusual thing to say about one's spouse. When I read it, I thought, what is she doing? And she wasn't brutally honest about that. Obviously, what he said was rude.
My husband kept giving me looks and raising his eyebrow whenever the words haircut or makeup or new dress got brought up. He decided to pitch in the conversation and started openly criticizing my current look and how unladylike I've become recently, especially after our 3rd child was born. He went on commenting on how much he'd like me to change my hair color, get my nails done, or buy new, nice dresses to wear like other wives do for once. I was stunned, mouth wide open, and so were my parents. Bill was laughing secretly, and my sister was looking at me head to toe in a poor sister type of way. My husband didn't stop at that and ranted about how I should start taking care of us and be more energetic, positive, outgoing, sexy, and so on and so on. I was mad. I loudly said behind every unladylike, miserable woman, there's a trashy, negative, a-hole man. We'll continue and pointed out what changed and that is him not pulling enough weight in childcare, delaying, making excuses, and putting house chores upon me constantly while he posts on Facebook about what an amazing work he does to provide for us. I cook, clean, wash, do laundry, get up with the baby, and feed and change and bath and so on. He reminded me that I'm a stay-at-home parent and he's the moneymaker. I pointed out that there are a lot of dads who are moneymakers and still do their part as partners and parents. He was stunned, dumbfounded, as everyone was looking at him in an awkward, embarrassing way. He got quiet the rest of the visit, just looking down and avoiding eye contact with everyone in the room. He blew up in the car, asking what possessed me to go off on him like that in front of his in-laws, who now have a very false, very misleading impression of him. He said no matter what happens, I should never share our private issues with family. I reminded him of who brought it up first, and he called me petty for making a scene to get back at him, only for giving me some innocent advice. He's sulking. Did I go too far?
Like we said before, this is obviously one-sided. Her brutal honesty did not include herself. What might he have said? She didn't take care of herself. Obviously both of them were in the wrong in this scenario. I mean, he should never have said those things, let alone in front of other people, her family. I mean, how embarrassing is that? And her response was less than helpful too.
She only made it worse. I agree with both of the things you said. I think that they were both in the wrong. It was just a not called for moment at dinner. Like, why are you talking about that at dinner? It doesn't even make any sense. Perhaps he was trying to bring something up and he thought now's the time, I have people here that'll validate it, and then it kind of blew up in his face. I don't know, but that's not a good idea to tell you.
Well, now didn't she say her husband was an airline pilot?
Yes, he's a full-time pilot. Okay, the part where she says, I pointed out that there are a lot of dads who are moneymakers and still do their part as partners and parents. I think that's a really important part of the story is when she said that, because it sounds as if she is saying, I'm burned out, which a lot of women that stay home are, you get burned out really easily. And she's just taking it all out on him instead of saying, hey, I'm really tired. I would love to get fixed up, but I don't feel like I know I have the time. Is there any way you could help me with A, B, and C?
Well, one thing that I found bewildering, he said, why don't you get your nails done and your hair and buy clothes? And I think most women I know would jump at the chance to be told they can do that. So, but one has to ask, why does she not want to do that? It sounds like he would even help her with getting someone to come in once a week to help her with the house.
Why did she immediately go on the defense about that? Makes me wonder if there's more to what's being shared. Like you said, most women would be, oh, really? I would love to do that. My problem is I just don't have the time. Is there any way we can make this happen?
Money. My husband said, why don't you buy new clothes? It's like if your husband says, why don't you redecorate our house? I'll give you the money. And she says, no.
Well, what's wrong with my decorating? Like, what? It doesn't make any sense that she would take that as offensive. It was kind of rude of him to call her names. Like, that wasn't good. To say that
was rude.
I don't know why he did that. That's really silly that he did that at dinner. But the underlying tone was that he wanted her to take better care of herself. And she even said it herself. He wants me to take better care of myself. Well, what's wrong with taking better care of yourself? Why? Do you think you're taking good care of yourself? And if you don't, perhaps it's because you don't know how. And that's where you can ask him, hey, I need your help. I would love to look better. I just don't have the time or the money.
Well, he's offered to pay for it. He's the breadwinner. He says, why don't you get your nails done? He's the breadwinner. He's obviously saying, oh, we can afford this. And she's declining. And I don't know any women in my personal acquaintance that would turn that down.
If my husband said that to me, I would probably feel embarrassed, but I would ultimately be excited that I was being given an opportunity, because in front of a lot of people, I might be like, oh man, this makes me feel bad.
But your husband, what if your husband said to you privately, I'd love to help you get your nails done all the time. I'd be glad to support that. Wouldn't you say, heck yeah?
Some women might even find offense to it privately, because they feel like they haven't been given
validation
or compliments or praise, and they're taking it as you look horrible, and then that hurts their feelings because they're tired and gosh, we work so hard. Stay-at-home moms work so hard. It can be emotional to hear things like this, because you're already thinking to yourself, gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. When do I have time to go get my hair done? So I can understand where she's coming from, but the way she reacted and calling him an a-hole in front of her family was so much more damaging than anything he did. What he did was snarky and bad, but she made it so much worse by responding in that way.
He said she's unladylike. I'd like to know how I just don't hear that from women.
Not a common insult. I don't hear that. No, unladylike lady.
What does she burp in public? I don't know what she does.
Maybe she doesn't look like, maybe she doesn't dress like a girl. I don't know. I think of so many things when I think of unladylike.
Well, brutally honest, I don't think this was. She was just venting. It wasn't brutally honest.
I think she hopped on Reddit because she wanted other women to validate that he was being a jerk, and she wanted someone else to tell her he's being a jerk, and then she could feel better about herself, which is really immature and sad. And that's why they attached this Gallup poll to the story, is they're trying to paint this picture that all women feel this way. The men are the enemies and the women are the victims at home that are so tired. And yes, we're tired, but why are we doing what we're doing? We're doing it for our families.
And also, we love our children. They're not like just something to care for, like a plant. They are our children. We love them with all of our hearts, and we want them to grow up to be responsible, mature adults.
Well, I personally don't want someone else raising my kids. I think it's great to take your kids into, schools and stuff. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when your kids are really, really young and they are needing you to teach them manners and guide them in their lives. Like, I personally, that to me is worth being tired for. I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different way of looking at it. But I just don't like that this article is trying to say that so many more moms are sad than you even realize. It's like the secret no one's telling you. No, it's not. It's not. No.
Well, and not only that, it isn't that simple, because if she were to not be a stay-at-home mom, she'd have suddenly a lot more expenses of paying someone. She has 3 children to put in daycare. And there's that, and gasoline, which is, as we know, has suddenly been on the rise, and all kinds of stuff. So what, and she's having other people care for her children. The big obvious elephant in the room is, what about her marriage? Somebody told her to divorce him. And I thought, divorce is not only expensive, then she would be the sole breadwinner and have to deal a lot with her kids by herself. So that doesn't solve that problem.
Yeah. And I tried this, by the way. I tried for 6 years to be a working mom. And I can tell you with all my heart, I was way more stressed out. I wasn't stressed about money. I was never really stressed about money, but I was stressed about my relationship, my kids. I was the most stressed about my kid, actually. That worried me the most. Getting calls when they're sick. I was stressed about work because I had to go home and take a day off. My goodness, I was so much more sad. You say sad moms. It was so much more sad. So I think to me personally, this kind of struck a chord with me because I tried this. And it was so hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is to work and have children. And I worked full time. I didn't work part time. I worked full time. And when my family needed me, which was all the time, I felt like I did a horrible job at work. And when I was at work, I felt like I was doing a horrible job at home. I never felt like I was doing a good job anywhere. So to me, this study, that's why it really bothers me, is that I went through it and I made the conscious choice to try this new lifestyle. And it's been so much better. And I'm not saying it's been perfect. It's not easy either way, but it's so much better this way and it's worth it. So that's just my kind of 2 cents about this. So going into the comments, this guy got roasted in the Reddit. Of course
he did.
He got roasted. No, she didn't. He did. I know. It says he's a parent. Working or not, he's a parent. It's his responsibility to help with the children. He insulted, belittled, and attacked you repeatedly in front of your family. Well, so did she. She also insulted him. It's not just her. They both were in the wrong as far as how they, brought it up. It also says, you said what needed saying. Oh boy. Call your husband an a-hole. That is what he needs to hear.
That's really going to be great for your marriage. It's
your husband is sexist and he's treating you like some kind of trophy wife rather than his equal partner and the mother of his children. He's the a-hole here, but you are in no way the a-hole for standing up for yourself. That's standing up for yourself, really? Is that what we're defining? No. Standing up for yourself is cursing at your husband in front of your family?
Well, not only that, I don't know these people that make these comments. How do they expect a full-time airline pilot to take the equal load with children? I know Bob was not an airline pilot, but he's been self-employed. And if I had required him and expected him to be there and help me equally with raising our kids, he couldn't have made the money that he did.
Same here. I can't expect equal out of my husband. Now, my husband just volunteers to do stuff all the time. We've had to work on this. This is a journey as a parent, figuring out, especially if you're new to being staying at home, like she's new to having a third baby. That this when you had your third. I remember you saying
actually I found third the hardest.
Oh, the hardest.
One child, there's 2 parents, so you can kind of juggle them. 2 children, each of you theoretically can be holding one, but 3, what if they all cry at once?
She just entered into this difficult time. I mean, I'm sure they're both probably trying to figure out, oh my goodness, now we've got 3. How do we juggle this? You have to figure it out. You don't call each other names and attack each other. Both of them should not be calling each other out. They should be trying to figure out how to have a more stable balance in their lives rather than point the finger and keep scoring each other.
And let's pray that this husband never saw her Reddit article.
I know.
And
then this article, those were the comments that we wanted to kind of talk about. Then this article goes into this woman that they hired, or they asked her opinion, and her name is Jane Parker. And she is a strategic intervention advanced relationship coach.
Wait a minute. A coach means they don't necessarily have a degree.
I looked her up. She has not that she, I mean, if I had a doctorate, I would be very happy to post it on my website. She doesn't have anything like that on there.
Yeah.
And Jane Parker, who coaches clients to have successful, fulfilling, and healthy relationships, told Board Panda that it is important that we have our own space mentally and physically. And so the restrictions of the pandemic have taken much of that away from us. She said that while we are all dealing with our own feelings and responsibilities, which can affect what we are capable of giving to our partner and children, inequality within relationships was also highlighted. Many women feel that the sacrifices and responsibilities that have come about because of lockdown have fallen at their feet, whilst their partners have been able to focus on their work as usual. I agree. This is a big problem with the recent pandemic. This has been a problem, but what does that have to do with this? Why is that being part of the narrative? Did you understand that?
Well, it's not helpful. It just says you're justified in your feelings, but it's not helpful.
She doesn't go on to say, this is what this couple should do, or this is what I would advise this couple to try. She just basically says, yeah, you guys need to help each other out. Well, what if he doesn't know how to do that? Or what if he doesn't understand what's needed of him? Or how does he help with the baby in the middle of the night when he comes home at weird hours? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, airline pilots, I understand sometimes they're gone for days at a time and then they'll be home for a while. And they're not, it's not 9 to 5. And so I don't know if he's a full-time airline pilot. I don't know how he can do what she hopes he will do. How does that actually work and bring home the money that she depends on? So I don't understand that.
Despite all of this, the end of the article, here's the whopper at the end. They say, despite all of this, 60% of adults, I don't know why they put this at the end because it kind of hurts their narrative. Despite of all this, 60% of adults think a stay-at-home parent who focuses on the family is better for the children. But only 35% think that it is not better for the children. So the majority of us out there do see the benefit and value of a stay-at-home parent. So what we're saying here is, coming around full circle, it's great to have a stay-at-home parent, but when you're in it, you're going to be sad. You're going to be depressed.
Which means that moms, too bad.
But it's not true. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this. So this is why we wanted to talk about this today. And, we did find another article, as I mentioned earlier. Here, let me pull it up. There's an article that I found. I can attach it to the video. Research has found no difference in the happiness between a housewife and a working wife. However, there's an expectation that a difference in their happiness exists today, given the increase in labor participation of women over the years. That was one of them. And then there's another one that talks about how a recent study found that the benefits of having a parent at home extend beyond the early years of a child's life. In the study, the educational performance of 68,000 children was measured. They found an increase in school performance all the way to high school aged children. And I'm sure we could dig into that one and find out what they asked, just like we did with the Gallup one. But we just wanted to attach that because it goes back to what we said in the beginning. You can't believe everything you read, and you really need to do your research and really ask those questions. If you're someone out there that's contemplating staying home or maybe dropping down to part-time and you want to start looking at research for all of this, don't just take one headline and go with it. Like, please look more into it and see that there are so many things that are not being asked.
Also, by the way, the Gallup poll didn't take into account the happiness of the children.
Not at all.
Happiness of the marriage, none of it. A family is more than one person. It's whoever's in the family. I know this for a fact that women are the gatekeepers of civilization. The health of our nations, our homes, largely depends on us not because it's so unequal and everything, but because women tend to be more relationship oriented, sensitive to the relationship, whether it's good or bad. Women tend to sense a relationship going the wrong way quicker than men do, and they focus on more in touch with details of it. We are the nurturers, and that's why we are so good at this. And to simply go by a poll and act like, well, you should be happy at all times no matter what. Raising children is hard, like you said, but it is so well worth it.
Well, it's especially hard in the first year. And
yes,
I think polls, if you're going to really interview moms, you really need to target the same time of these people's lives. If you should that poll should never have been between the ages of 18 to 60, whatever. That is just not even the same playing field. I mean, the way that my youngest is 4, and I can tell you 2 years ago, I was in a completely different stress and tiredness state than I am now. And to compare all of those and combine them into one little package is just not realistic. And it's not.
Well, an 18-year-old mother, that's a teenage mother. And if you're including those, if you're a mother and 18, you're going to have unique stresses that somebody who's 30 isn't going to have.
Right.
Because they're more mature, they've learned more about life and maybe more about self-discipline, about a lot of things. So it's not, like you say, it's not fair, and it's not objective.
Right.
And so that's why we reject it, because it doesn't make sense.
Right. So there you have it. That's our, we don't usually do this, but we wanted to do an article today because we felt really compelled by that Gallup poll, because they're a pretty credible company. So we'd love to hear your comments, what you think about this article after you've read it. Let us know what you think. All comments are good comments. And we're here every week. So don't forget to hit subscribe and like so our channel can grow, and you will know when we have a new video come out. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Stay feminine.